Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have with me from the Great Midwest one, RDV. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Cyborg with one of our favorite guys, Jean-Claude Van Damme, JCVD. And no homo, RDV, I think this guy's incredibly good looking. I've always said he makes him naturally a great baby face. He's a hero that you can root for. Just an overall nice guy. Yet for some reason, before he got that mega contract and starting tons of coke, he started in a few movies that kind of strayed away from the martial arts stuff that made him a name, like Kickboxer, all that. And the movie tonight, Cyborg, is a perfect example of that. I have not watched this in 30, 40 years, whatever it's been. And boy, I can see why. This is a little bit different than what I remember. What's your take on this film?
Going into this movie, I'm like, everyone says, "Oh, this movie is one of the worst movies he's ever done. It's horrible. It's so low budget. It's like, it's just the acting's bad." I'm thinking like, I'm just like, it's one of the only very few rare movies of he's done that I have not watched.
Yes,
the other one was like it was Black Eagle or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I've sat through horrible dystopian movies. When I would say horrible, but somewhat entertainable, like Cherry 2000, and I just going through some of these late 80s sci-fi movies. I was just like, it's Jean-Claude Van Damme. You know, it's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get like bad overacting, kind of like either like Johnny Mnemonic, Keanu Reeves, or it's gonna be like what was the other Street Fighter where it's meant to be kind of gaudy like that, but it's
Street Fighter was cool.
Yeah, sure. I'm not knocking Street Fighter. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The whole point of these movies is to showcase him having a shirt off, having a final battle.
Yeah.
And then going against other guys who are like probably American Gladiators at the time, probably. The main bad guy, you see him in there. He's got the mesh, like silver mesh, thing, and he's got the puffed up jacket, and just like every time I look at this, when I see him, it's Johnny TV. That's what I think of every single time with the shades on. He's got his hair pulled back, and it's in like a dreadlock, and then it has the blonde tips. It's like I'm just looking at it's like. The guys are cross between like Johnny TV and Gavin DeGraw, or whatever. No, not that Gavin DeGraw. The one that used to be with girl from No Doubt.
I don't know. I don't follow that crap.
The lead singer Bush.
I still don't follow that crap. Because
really?
By the time the 90s rolled around, it was all crap, sir. Mostly.
Man,
crap.
You have at least seen the guy lead singer Bush before.
So. I'm sure I would have forgotten about him because this is awful. Everyone looks like they're about 5'3".
Yeah, everybody in this movie is just awesome. Seriously, it's like I get. There's a guy in the bottom down below there. I thought it was Brian Bosworth coming off of Stone Cold.
No, that would have actually been cool.
I know, right? I was popping. I was like, "Oh, is that him?" Like everybody in here was just like jacked up. And this is what you want from like a bad cheesy. Like a 80s sci-fi movie, because this is like take place in this open movie. The world's been destroyed pretty much by war and plague, and we have these guys called spinners, which is basically which is another name for a coyote. What we go today, smuggling people in and out of the city and stuff. It takes place in New York City. That's where it's
coyote.
Yeah. All we know is this guy's hunting for this guy named Fenner or Fenbar, whatever you call him. And for on revenge, and he comes across this woman who happens to be named Pearl, happens to be a cyborg, but who apparently has information that's needed to help the CDC, what's left of it in Atlanta.
Because everybody loves the CDC back then.
I know, right? Find a cure. That's the first I popped out. I was like, Atlanta. I'm like, oh, CDC. I'm like, because that's what a Walking Dead show did. And then it turned out to be a dead end, too. No pun intended.
I will say this. When you see him and he has the fight, it's pretty basic fare by 80 standards, certainly by American action, certainly not Hong Kong. But what I liked about this fight scene is I always told you that, we like a lot of the stunts with people falling and jumping, and we get a lot of that. And it's in some bullshit little vagrant place. But here's what was cool. I always told you the most underused thing that I wish would make a comeback somehow, some way in films would be that 80s thing of guys wearing pantyhose over their face where you can see them. Because these guys have something similar. It's more like mantyhose, where it's a little more like got the camouflage thing on it too.
The
And they're fighting like,
goggles.
this is absolutely ridiculous, but it's so bad that I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And she's
Yeah.
already, you know, gets saved by him, so she's already ready to offer herself to him. Typical JCVD type stuff, you know.
Which, honestly, this movie did not feature sex between the two main stars in this. The
Yeah, he
girl
keeps
who-
it clean that way, usually.
I was shocked. Even though she takes her clothes off, she runs in the ocean, and then she comes back and she gonna pull her top off. You see her full breasts again, and he's like, nope. He's either gay or they couldn't afford a sex scene in this. They wanted to keep it so low budget. Either way, is an interesting movie, and like I said, it's a very, very B movie. You know,
I don't mind him trying to branch out because remember the first two films that we talked about, Bloodsport, Kickboxer.
Yeah,
they're a hell of a lot better than what they should be. And
Yeah.
a lot of it has to just to do with him and then the story and how there's that genuine nature
Underdog.
to it.
Yeah.
Here, I don't mind at this point in his career, he still hasn't been established as a megastar. You still had some of your older stars that transferred in from doing the martial arts to more of the gunplay. So we've got this new age of actors in a way that we thought would continue this, and he was prime one of them. And of course, we could say Steven Seagal was, much to the chagrin of what people would come to say about Steven Seagal later. He was hot at the time. And of course, we always bring up Jeff Speakman with The Perfect Weapon. All these hit around the same time, this couple year window. So we're like, okay, here's a younger group of people that can kind of carry on that mantle and eventually do it. So it's not that when this came out, you're like, oh, he's a cyborg, she's a cyborg. What's the cyborg thing? Who cares? It's just a little different, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's trying to branch out.
I honestly did not know if he was a cyborg, if he was a human, whatever. I had no idea going into this movie. I purposely did not look into this in the past 30 years.
Right.
I just know from hearing on people saying, it's like, yeah, wasn't that great. You know, it was kind of really low budgets. But I'm like, those are the movies I love. I love the low budget movies because sometimes they go into places like, you know, the far-flung future like this. I mean, we have Terminator music, synthwave going in the background music. I love it.
And there's a sound effect I know that's prevalent in here that it's hard.
Yeah,
it says if you're a guitar aficionado like I am, Joe Satriani used it on a lot. I think on the Bells of Law from like around 89, 90, and it was in a couple of movies. And it's in here a lot. It does have a little vibe to it. And even though this is a low budget film, it still looks really good. And a lot of the stuff they have are like on industrial location sites on the outside. With
definitely.
I appreciate that. It's better than being indoors. Even though I like those set pieces, sometimes just watching people outside fight, move around is just cool or something neat about it.
So we get this. Remember, there's one thing we didn't bring up. This is a Canon film group. So
that's why we call it a Canon classic, because you have to see it. This is Canon film.
Yeah. So it's just funny, and like Jean-Claude Van Damme did Canon movies.
Oh, absolutely.
Did like one or two, I think.
Doesn't matter.
I know, but I was like, usually when we think of Canon, we think of Chuck Norris.
I think of Ninja.
Or Dudikoff.
That's right.
That's the only two names that come to mind. When you think of like Canon films, like, oh, it's always been Chuck Norris, and then there was Michael Dudikoff.
Yep.
Like, so you're like, oh, there's a third one. What? Jean-Claude Van Damme. What? So, yeah, it's basically a very straight point. He's got to help this woman who meets him in town and says, like, you need to help me save this, you know, because she has a cure. She can help cure millions, you know. It's like, whatever people left. And he's like, all I want to do is kill Fenway. And, you know, we don't, all we know is he gets glimpses of him taking in this woman and her son and her daughter, you know. And they end up fight in the flashbacks. We find out they get this like little farm, and he gives up the life as far as being a spinner, cuts his hair. And this is weird. He has like the Gamba hair. For those who watch X-Men, he had the long bangs, and then they had the long tied back ponytail and stuff. I just kept thinking like, this is like the 90s anime, early 2000s. Every male character had really long hair and had the long bangs, mysterious emo thing. I was just like, he looked like he stepped out of a French movie, like, you know, from the medieval ages, you know, or the 1500s, whatever. But it was okay. So he kind of like does cut it, you know, obviously in the future here. But I always thought that was kind of weird. Every time the show, it's like so weird, and he's so young, and they really play up the fact that this guy is a striking, good-looking guy, you know. they really play on his looks. So people are naturally warm up to him. They trust him in this. As I was kind of funny. So the girl goes with him. They go after this the girl who's a cyborg, and all he cares about is revenge because this guy pretty much he's a fucked up thing with Fenbar did. The guy basically took him hostage and wrapped him, the mother and the son in barbed wire, and had him hanging from a pulley above this well. And then here comes Haley, the little girl. He's like, hold on, and you can save him. The barbed wire. And they all fought. And of course she can't because she's little. She's probably 14, 15, whatever. And she drops. And he crawls out of the well. The other ones are dead at the bottom of the well. So they must have drowned. That's what I can think of. Because the water wasn't above their head, but it was maybe they snapped their neck, whatever. It's beside the point. So he gets out, and he's all he wants to get revenge against this guy. Meanwhile, we got this chick who's been traveling with him. We turn out, surprise, it is Haley. She grew up, and she's hanging out with the guy who killed her mother, and she must have thought he was dead too, because she probably left with him. So they're just trying to get to Atlanta, and so of course, what is Fenbar and his gang of hoodlums from Highlander 2 do? Because that's what they remind me of. They end up they want to go to Atlanta. They track them to, before they get to Atlanta, they track them to they have another elaborate, they have there's 3 scenes in here they have fights. There's a warehouse fight scene.
Yep.
And he's not even going against the Fenbar. These other guys. The guys are look like ex-Green Beret guys. They're rappelling from there and onto this what's left of a building scaffolding and stuff. And then they fight there, and then he gets to use his little gun. It's basically it has 4 shots.
Yep.
A modified rifle. It spins like a Gatling gun. Then later on, he goes against Fenbar and his guys in this industrial warehouse. Not a warehouse, but a refinery or something like that. They fight there. He ends up the side where he says no, I can't go with you because you basically saying, bro, you suck. You're gonna get us both killed. I'll go with them. I'll lead him to his destruction. Outsmart the guy. So he leaves her, takes the other girl who told her to stay put, and instead she was an idiot. Oh, fuck this! I'm gonna do what I want, and then she gets knocked out. He grabs her. They go in the sewer, and they're walking through in a high waste water, and then he realizes, oh shit, we're being followed. So I gotta put her down here. Hopefully she doesn't tip over and fall in the water because she's unconscious.
Right.
And then we see this dude walk into the water with a knife, his waist up. He's like, oh, where is he? Where is he?
The
splits. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when.
Because you always get the splits. Yeah. I tell you, while that has become a thing people had seen as other movies would look for, I've forgotten about a popular, I don't know if popular is the right word, but what I would call a very memorable scene in here that we had reviewed some of JCDV movies, certainly not the whole catalog, a while ago. I think that it was back when we were experimenting with just showing clips and talking about things a little differently.
Yeah.
And one of the movies, I think it was In Hell, where he gets in a fight and he ends up biting a dude's neck off and all that and screaming and hollering and stuff and all that. But I just thought to myself, what makes you look better? And I'm not making fun of anybody's particular personal beliefs, than being crucified so you can show off your body and getting out of it by kicking with your heels and getting out of it. Because he's there on the beach, although everybody's, there. And it's
well, he's got air. Yeah.
He has that thing about him where I don't want to say he's a holy warrior or a wholesome kind of person, but there is a sort of what we call, what you and I've always described as an all-American, good-looking nature to him. He's a good guy, and he's having flashbacks, and basically it's the whole rebirth before he goes in and just kills everybody. To your point, goes in the well. This is the allegory of going down under and then being reborn through water and all that after being crucified, right?
Well, no, the crucified was after this.
Well, I'm going towards the end where you see that flashbacks.
Yeah. But so he gets, after he jumps down, kills the guy with the knife. They crawl out of the sewer, and then the girl ends up waking up, and they fight. She gets in a fight, and she chops off another girl's hand. There's a lot of girl and girl fighting here in this movie, on guy and guy. And yeah, so they're like walking through the swamps. I'm thinking like, well, we haven't seen any animals yet, so who knows if there's any alligators? That would have been great to play. Come in like this, I don't know where comes this freaking crocodile, whatever. Or
I think there's a croc movie coming out this year, but
yeah. Anyway, so after all this, he fights and he gets worn out, and then the big dude's like, yeah, I'm gonna fight him now. He's mine. I'm like, of course he is, you little pussy. You're gonna fight him after you killed like 12 of your guys, and he's running. Kicks the crap out of him. Yeah, and next to this old ship. Yeah, and that's what he ties him. Next thing you know, he's looking up and he's on like the mast. His hands are tied up and he's got arrows, through his wrists. And they didn't tie his leg. It's like so. Like I said, I popped for this too. It's like what's gonna happen. The horrible flashbacks of his lover and and then he wants revenge and he's using his anger to keep kicking the mast. And then finally it breaks after he gets so angry and stuff.
You know one thing that's hard to take this movie seriously up to this point before we talk about the last act. I'm going to bring this up to you, okay? Because I didn't think they were that serious about doing it because it's such an obvious goof. But in the 80s, when we talk about rock and roll in its current incarnation, doesn't really exist anymore. But the 80s rock and stuff people listen to, there was a subset of it, not just pop music or rock and roll. There was heavy metal. There's all sorts of stuff. And so there's a lot of thrashers out there. A lot of people think Eddie Van Halen was one, Ingrid Malmsteen, and so on. But did you know that all the bad guys here are named basically after guitar stuff? So the bodyguard, which is him, you know what his name is? Marshall Stratt. Okay, the bad guy is Fender Tremolo. The tremolo is your whammy bar, as they like to call it.
Yeah,
it's just really bad because it's hard to go, wait a minute. If you just kind of kept the synthwave music in there and had different names, this might have been one of those ones where you just kind of like vibe into it a little bit. But every time they start using names or say stuff, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. It breaks that suspense of disbelief. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't hear anybody than the main dude's name. I didn't care. I wasn't there like cannon fodder, so I didn't hear him say the names.
Yeah, but like Gibson, like for your SGs.
And Gibson is
Fender,
Gibson,
I mean, yeah.
I didn't hear the other names, but anyway, so then the girl who basically was traveling is like, oh, still see you don't need me. She cuts her for his rope, and then you see like there's like holes or like what's scarred up now on his wrist and stuff. He's meant. And then they end up going to Atlanta, and then it's like. Oh, poor Atlanta. Whenever there's like a end up apocalypse thing.
It's a nice little matte painting, though.
Right? I know. The lightning above and just like boom, and it's just like the bus there. And thinking, here's the one thing that made me mad: we didn't see any skeletons. You're going to a city and like this, and there's diseases. Do you think there'd be like leftovers? Like the bars are all and all towns are all run over by vegetation's grown back up now. We get a bar fight with the girls. Fender and Gibson face off in the middle of the street, and of course it's raining monsoon, and I'm getting flashbacks to Universal Soldier, Dolph Lundgren versus Jean-Claude Van Damme fighting in the rain.
Well, it hadn't been released yet, but yeah.
I know, but I mean, like, I wonder if they sampled that from this movie. They're like, you look really good in fighting in the rain, shirtless. And Fender takes off his shirt, and then he's every time I see him, he takes off his glasses. He's got the blue eyes. I'm just thinking, it's like, remember the '90s? All these white guys that wanted to have the dreadlocks and all that stuff.
No, and I lived it. Nobody wanted dreadlocks then.
Oh, that's all I remember seeing was the surfer bros, the white guys who were just like were trying to wear the dreadlocks. They were. I went to school with kids like that. It was just like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like. These are the potheads. A lot of them were, but I mean, it was just like, so every time I saw this guy, it's like, what look are you going for here? Because this isn't Escape from New York, and him being like taller, more physical. The guy's in shape, the guy who plays him is
no, he's a very fit guy. I mean, he's
Vincent Klyn or Klyn is the guy's name. This
movie is super low budget. It's meant to be, but if you looked at it, you wouldn't think that it costs less than $1 million to make.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, it's that good a quality. You could say whatever about the quality of the fights. We get to see pretty much what we've seen so so far in his catalog this early in his career, right? So to me, I like the fact a lot of it was shot outdoors, and it took like less than like maybe a month to film or whatever. You don't get that these days where you can produce something high quality. It's interesting because I'd watched recently a very low budget movie called Slumber Party Massacre from the early 80s. That's a ripoff of, you know, Michael Myers slasher films, something I don't think that you would like, but it was a Roger Corman thing where somebody that was an editor, he gave her some money and said, hey, all right, you can prove to me if you can make a movie, but here's your budget. So the guy that did this, regardless of how silly stuff look, they got costumes, the guys are jacked, the people look authentic. You could do a lot worse than this for a B movie. And remember, the secondary market really still wasn't huge at this point here, maybe VHS a little bit. But again, I put a link in Daily Motion where you could see this. If you just see it, it's a good looking print. It holds up well. So, it's obviously not digital or anything like that. So I don't mind it for what it is.
So there's a guy in here named Jackson Rock Pinckney. It's the actor. He played on One Offenders Pirates. He's the big old but muscular black guy.
Yep.
And he ended up losing an eye because Jean-Claude Van Damme struck him with a prop knife.
Oops.
Accidents.
Yep.
And he ended up suing Van Damme, and he's awarded $585,000 for losing an eye.
That seems low, even by
doesn't it? You know. Yeah.
You know.
So, but I mean, I was looking at the actors and stuff in here. It's like, whenever we're watching reviewing other movies, and sometimes we come across these guys. Obviously, it must be like stunt actors, you know, because of the fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So I always look at some of these dudes are like pretty tall and stuff. We had Ralf Moeller was another guy. He was the big dude in the sewer that was chasing with the knife. And just, you know, and here's the one thing: it's crazy. It's like apparently whenever you're like a mutant or a pirate guy, you scream, and when you're fighting, that's this whole movie. I kept thinking it's like,
well, you know, look, this is going to sound stupid, but there's this concept of like when you punch that, you know, they always tell you to breathe right when you make contact because you get the last little bit of energy into it. I think it's bullshit because it's gotten that way in professional sports. Basketball, tennis is really notorious for that, where people hit and they yell, and it's bullshit. But they're yelling because the guy's jacked as fuck and big. And I don't mean 150 pounds lean. I'm talking these guys are big motherfuckers. And I love it because Van Damme's got such an incredible physique, but yet he sometimes looks small compared to these guys. So it's not like they made him the massive individual, right? And honestly, we've got to fight on the beach. We got to fight, you know, like you said earlier, in a different place. Yeah. Now we get one here while it's raining with two big buff guys. It's kind of gay, and who cares, right? It's one of the first fighting scenes in the rain that you can actually see, right? We talked about Richter, season 3, episode 8, the final fight. A great, really long, drawn-out fight in like 3 acts with the guy that's much bigger than him. In a way, this sort of reminds me of that, except for this takes place basically here at the end. It's the big boss fight, as you would say. Yeah. And then there were some scenes in the water you couldn't see, but here you can see everything. I mean, it's done well.
So that Ralf Moeller guy who was in there, he's got the long hair, and he's one that chased him in the sewer, gets killed by the knife.
Yep.
Universal Soldier, he's one of the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're on a team and you can do stuff like this, you can have a life where you'll show up and everything. You look at Jackie Chan's stunt people. We've talked about this before, right? They work for him, get their insurance, and they do what they do. That Hong Kong style. You could not, it was so hard to do Hong Kong here in America because of how they wanted to do it. It's just a different mentality, right? So it's striking when we watch this Hong Kong films. I'm like, man, why doesn't America do this? It just seems like it's better quality, generally speaking. Wow, amazing. Now, this is a movie that if you're a big fan of JCVD, you should see it. It's a B movie. It's not an A film. But here's the thing. It did, regardless of what you think of it or what people have rated it, it did a shitload good business. It really, really did. The synthwave helps, in my opinion. It's futuristic sounding. If it was rock and roll or something, I think it would not work. There's not a lot of talking into it. Like you said, half of it's grunting like getting hit. Which I don't care. Dumb it down for me. Bunch of apes at each other.
And I'm looking, before we get the ending, I'm looking at the writer and director, this Albert Pyun. You know, he's known for this, and Radioactive Dreams was another one reviewed.
Yep.
Sword and the Sorcerer, Nemesis 5, the new model. He's done a lot of Left 4 Dead. He did a lot of like movies like this. There are B movies. That died in 2022, you know, but yeah. I mean, the Nemesis movie, Kickboxers movies. He did Kickboxers 2, 4, and just Alien from LA. It's another one.
That was Kathy Ireland's attempt at breaking out and going mainstream. Yeah. Later on, Cindy Crawford would do the same thing.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This was his 9th movie. Yeah, started with Sword and Sorcerer, and then went to Radio Dreams, Dangerously Close. Then he directed the Blood and Roses for the Smithereens music video. Then he did Vicious Lips, Down Twisted, Alien of A, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and then Cyborg. And he just
Journey to the Center of the Earth. What year?
1988.
Okay.
He's one of the directors.
It was the Treat Williams television version in the late 90s, which was actually decent, kind of.
Yeah. So he said he did a lot of movies, B movies, Arcade, Nights, Hong Kong '97, Heatseeker, Spitfire, a lot of the Nemesis movies. He did all the sequels. I don't know if he did he did all the Nemesis movies. If you ever heard of those, 1992 and went on.
Yeah, and the thing is
Omega Doom.
There were so many franchises that were smaller, like the Puppet Master and other things that you could have a life on it. And you and I have mentioned going into the 90s with DVDs. This is where you could actually do that in VHS. It's legitimate.
So the other one we were talking about a while back was called Omega Doom with Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
About 96. This is the same director. So
I don't know.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not gonna crap on the other films. Obviously they're B movies. So if you're looking for that's the thing. If you're looking for a blockbuster movie, go ahead and go for that. If you're looking for something that's campy, you can pop popcorn in, this is it.
Yeah,
and because you're watching for Jean-Claude Van Damme, you're watching for the bad dystopian future. Remember, all of them were always like after a nuclear war or a plague struck. Like I said, Journey Menahem came out right around this time too, as well. Keanu Reeves, so that's another cyborg. Remember, he had trying to transport it. He was a messenger. And I think Ron Perlman was in that too. I can't remember.
There's one called Hardware that had Lemmy from Motorhead in it. They're just awful. I mean, I think Mick Jagger was in that as well. There's a lot of attempt at what they call science fiction, but they really weren't. They were just set in a dystopian future, really.
What was the Mick Jagger one you didn't like? Was that Flashback?
I think is it Hardware?
No. It's the one with Emilio Estevez.
Oh, is that Free Jack?
Free Jack.
Oh God. Oh, those were painful.
I love it.
Painful to watch. It's just sort of there.
I like Free Jack. The concept of it. The concept of being able to transfer your mind to another person's mind, time travel stuff. I love that stuff. But like I said, this movie is well way onto him earning a spot as being one of the best martial artists, just actors. At least I'd say in American, but for American movies, though, even though he is not really, he's French, or he's from Brussels, the muscle from Brussels. Yeah.
One of the best movies of time travel is something called Primer. One of these days, I'm gonna get around to reviewing that. I highly recommend that. Makes a lot of sense if you watch it.
The best time travel movie is Time Cop. Screw Back to the Future. It's Time Cop. I love Time Cop. How many times have they done Journey to the Center of the Earth? Well, until they're done journeying there, it's probably about
as many times as I've done Sherlock and Dracula and all this stuff. That seriously,
the only ones I would recommend if you're gonna journey to the Center of the Earth is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle movies. Those are the best. Because there actually was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Journey to the Center of the Earth. There was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes. Whenever they have his name attached to the title, it's gonna be good.
Michael Moorcock, who wrote all the Elric of Melbourne books, I think he did a film for, I don't know if it was Journey to the Center of the Earth or not the Land That Time Forgot, but if it's got something, if it's Britishy from the 60s and 70s or even the 40s and 50s, check it out, because they've done their own versions, like The Island of Dr. Moreau. This, that, Cat People's an old story. There's different versions of, but a lot of the public domain stuff and anything H.G. Wells is ripe for exploitation, as well as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Which reminds me, we've got another episode that just dropped, the Naval Treaty of Sherlock Holmes. So I thank everybody for tuning into that. The next one's gonna be dropping next week too. But yeah, I mean, what's coming up? RDV, give it to me.
For us, well, Sunday it's gonna be whatever we put in the poll tonight. We're probably looking at some dystopian movies. I already forgot which ones you said.
The Road.
The Road, and there was
Book of Eli.
Book of Eli, and then the third one was Frog, right?
That was the Frog Town. That was a joke.
Yeah, the Roddy Piper one.
Yeah, you guys pick, and we decided we're back to that typical schedule that we'd start off this year with, where you guys vote on the movie, and then Sunday night we watch it, we review it with you guys.
Yeah. And then Tuesday will be surprise, whatever we decide to put in.
Yes.
We might do a TV series. We might just do a movie. We might just alternate. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. Sherlock Holmes has been pretty successful. I think it's a great example of some of the best TV that's out there, even though it's older. If you like that sort of thing, it's just phenomenal. The set pieces, the acting. Everyone has their interpretation of Sherlock Holmes, what they should be. I know that RDV, I've talked about some British shows like what's the Frankenstein Chronicles with Sean Bean.
Yep.
I think it was 2 seasons. I don't know if it was 3, but we watched it. Very good. Excellent. I know there's a lot of re-imaging from British television, like Sherlock Holmes. And I'm like, what does that have to do with Sherlock Holmes? And someone told me, well, it's set in the modern day times. And I'm like, okay, so what else? And I'm like, well, that doesn't really sound like Sherlock Holmes, but it's such a popular character that you're going to see some reinvention of it, just like Journey to the Center of the Earth, that sort of thing too. Doctor Who, I know a lot of people argue and fight about it. I'm an 80s guy, so the Doctor Who there, that guy with curly hair, I forget his name. That's the guy I'm used to seeing. I remember seeing the guy before him and after. Can't imagine who that is, but he keeps getting recycled. But you cannot recycle JCVD unless you're a cyborg. Final thoughts?
Well, like I said, these are a very good movie. I'm looking forward into reviewing some more Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. A lot of them we have not done, including Monaco Fever. Monaco Forever.
Monaco
Forever.
Okay.
You know what that is, right?
Not off the top of my head.
American jewel thief in Monaco encounters various characters while trying to set up a robbery. It stars Charles Pitt, Nancy Brooke, and Daniel Romer. And then you have gay karate man Jean-Claude Van Damme.
No.
Sir, it's either that or we do Breakin'.
Breakin' is tremendous. Another canon classic. Highly recommend you guys watch Breakin' and Breakin' 2.
Honestly,
Electric Boogaloo. And then top it off with the best ninja movies of all time, the Ninja 2, and then of course Ninja 3, The Domination.
Sir, it doesn't matter. I'll just say I'm willing to review whatever movie is. I don't care. As long as JCVD is in it, we'll review it. Like I said, you want to do Breakin', but in Monaco Fever, that might be bad. But if I get to see him doing martial arts stuff, that's worth it for me.
Breakin's got some really, really great physical dancing
breakdance fighting,
and some 80s music. Yeah. And that thing was massive, bro. I cannot tell you the lines outside the theaters at the time when it came out. Didn't matter if you're white, black, Asian, whatever your persuasion was. Everybody wants to Breakin'. People love
Anthony wants more nudity and less action. Is that I'm getting here? I mean, there was nudity in this movie.
Now he's saying there was more nudity and less action in this director's cut or whatever, because they cut a lot out of here to make it more like whatever.
I didn't know there was a director's cut of Cyborg.
Well, remember it all. I'm not going to say it all started with, but always kind of goes back to whether or not people wanted to see the movie that kind of flopped there with Harrison Ford in there, Blade Runner, and all the different versions going forward too. People would do that. They'd shoot a little bit more and then trim a little bit, and you'd have the VHS market, right? So yeah, it'll be interesting when we start emphasizing a bit of 90s as far as the secondary market. I know we've mentioned it before.
90s, early 2000s, towards the end of the DVDs, when DVDs were being killed off and streaming launched, director cuts went away.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Yeah,
because I used to get that, when all the movies come out, did you get the unrated cut or did you get the theatrical cut? I'm like, well, I'm gonna get the theatrical. Get the unrated. I want to see what they actually meant to put in there, and we couldn't because of the stupid MPA.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm looking forward to doing more of these. I mean, more Jean-Claude Van Damme. I know we still have a few more Chuck Norris. Heck, we might even throw next Tuesday, throw in a Richard Norton movie in.
Yeah. Richard Norton had passed away there too. Painful. I mean, he was a good guy. You know what? That's actually a really good idea. Talking about
he was still doing as far as stunt coordinating. He did that on the first Suicide Squad. Oh, Dave Ayer.
I'll say this when it comes to
the second one. Sorry. But,
we brought up some people in movies, and of course we started off with Chuck Norris because that's one of our favorites. We thought, well, if this channel doesn't go anywhere, at least we'll do Chuck Norris films, and we did other ones, right? And then, of course, I think, to me, in my opinion, the way I remember it, and I may be wrong, but if you go back to the early days of our channel, especially some of you with all the revamping that you've done with some of the older content, one of the more modern versions of something that we discovered was a woman, and that would be Amy Johnston, when we did Lady Bloodflight, because that was the like blood sport kind of Jean-Claude female.
I think it's called. I think it might have been called Lady Bloodsport. Actually, I'm not
Blood
sure.
Flight or Blood Fight, whatever. But it was, their Kumite kind of thing or whatever. And so, her being raised by a guy that was a legitimate kickboxer or whatever like that, she's definitely got the chops. We talked about, I mentioned to you Cynthia Rothrock. We did some of that. We went and done some overseas ones. We went and found some stuff out. Some of the people listening recommended things. So it's very interesting when you go down that organically to try to figure out what's going on, because again, this movie is super low budget. It's not bad. And you know what? I've seen worse on current television today when it comes to action. At least here you can see what's going on and you can appreciate the physiques these guys have cultivated. And someone like a Richard Norton that we mentioned before, hey, he comes up. And then we talked about Sonny Chiba. And then we talked about Tony Jaa, which I know the way they filmed some of his scenes you weren't the biggest fan of, but he brought a different style to it. Yeah, so to me, Richard Norton's one of those guys that smart enough, like an Amy Johnston, that you can do stuff. Maybe you're not an A-lister per se, but you can still have a long career in martial arts doing stuff that you like. You don't have to be like Jackie Chan and be the A+ guy, Nobody's going to be Jackie Chan.
I mean, we're always asking for movie recommendations. If you know right around a late 80s, early 90s sci-fi movie that's, the low budget that you think that, hey, I thought this was really cool, you guys should review it. Let us know down below in the comment section after this is done. Because there's quite a few, and we just want to try to gauge as far as which ones you guys are more interested in, because this is like from out of left field. Cyborg. It's just we just randomly like, how about we were like, let's do a dystopian movie. So we're like, oh, The Road, and I'm like, Cyborg, we haven't done that.
Yep. Cyborg is not as dark as The Road. That's all I'm gonna say. So yeah.
But
all right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to doing that. And one last thing, if you guys see any older material that we have that you'd like us to revisit, let us know. We've done that too on some stuff because we might really, really like the film, or it gets hot, or somebody's brought it up before too. So we're not against that either. It's not one done. 5 years from now, we might redo Cyborg scene by scene. Who knows, right?
I'm also looking at maybe even redoing the Mission Impossible ones. Although I have them up in a playlist now. But we've only done 1 and 2. We might just do the rest of them. We haven't reviewed those yet.
Yep. We usually do 1 or 2 like in a series to see how they do, if we're going to continue or not. So that's kind of the idea. But we're certainly open. All right, good night, everybody.
Well, movies, not you guys did the other one. But
right.
Later, guys. And as always, stay extreme.